The alarm bells rang through the ship like angry wasps. Captain Jake Morrison ran down the metal hallway, his boots making loud sounds on the floor. Red lights flashed everywhere, making everything look like blood. The ship was shaking so hard that Jake had to grab the walls to stay up. "What the hell is happening?" Jake yelled into his radio as he reached the bridge. The big room was full of smoke and sparks. Computer screens were breaking, and the air smelled like burning metal. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her workstation. Her face was white with fear. "Captain, we have a big problem. The energy readings are off the charts. Something huge is coming toward us." Jake looked at the main screen. Outside the ship, space was not black anymore. It was purple and green and moving like water. Strange lights danced in the colors like lightning. The planet below them, Kepler 442b, was glowing with the same weird light. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her numbers again. "Maybe 10 minutes before it hits us. This energy wave will tear the ship apart." Jake hit the button for ship-wide communication. "All crew to emergency stations. This is not a drill." Commander Tony Blake came running onto the bridge. He was a big man with strong arms and a face that never showed fear. But today, his eyes were wide. "Captain, the alien crew members are acting strange. They're all moving toward the escape pods." Jake felt his stomach drop. The aliens had been working with humans for 20 years. They were supposed to be partners. Friends, even. "What do you mean acting strange?" "See for yourself," Tony said. Pointing to a small screen that showed the pod bay, Jake watched as the tall, blue Xanthari aliens moved quickly down the hallway. Their leader, Zexai, was talking fast in their singing language. Behind them came the gray, rock-like Corvan soldiers. Their chief, Gorthak, was carrying his weapons. Last came the Voidlings, floating like ghosts in their energy suits. "They're leaving," Jake said quietly. "They're actually leaving us." Lisa looked up from her work. "The energy wave is getting stronger. Need to evacuate now if we want to live." Jake grabbed his radio. "Zexai, this is Captain Morrison." "What's your status?" The radio crackled. Then Zex's voice came through, but it sounded different. Cold. "Captain Morrison, we have received new orders from the Galactic Council. We must leave immediately." "Leave? What about the mission? What about us? The mission is over. This phenomenon is beyond our ability to study safely. We suggest you use the remaining escape pods." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. "How many pods are left?" Tony checked his tablet. 3, but we have 12 humans on board." The ship shook harder. Lisa's computer made a loud beeping sound. "Captain, the wave will hit us in 5 minutes. The escape pods can't outrun it anyway."
Jake
watched the screen as the alien ships pulled away from the Discovery. They moved fast, their engines glowing bright blue. In seconds, they were gone. Leaving the human ship alone in the growing storm of purple and green energy, Engineer Kate Sullivan's voice came over the radio from the engine room. "Captain, I can't keep the engines running much longer. Whatever that thing is, it's messing with our power systems." Lisa was still working at her station, trying to understand the energy wave. Tony was checking weapons, even though they had nothing that could fight something this big. Through the windows, he could see the other human crew members at their posts. Nobody was running. Nobody was giving up. "Sir," Lisa said, "I'm reading something weird. This energy, it's not natural. It's coming from the planet's surface. From the ruins we came here to study." Jake moved to her station. The planet below was covered in old buildings from a civilization that died out millions of years ago. That's why they had come here to learn about the people who used to live there. "The ruins are active," Jake asked. "More than active. They're generating this energy wave. It's like they're trying to communicate." Tony came over to them. "Captain, I've been thinking. Why did the aliens leave so fast? They've been studying these ruins for months. They knew this could happen." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "You think they knew this would happen?" "I think they've been waiting for it to happen. Think about it. They bring us here to study ruins on a dangerous planet, and when things get bad, they run away and leave us to die." Lisa looked up from her computer. Tony might be right. Look at this. She pointed to her screen. I've been checking the records. Every joint mission between humans and aliens ends the same way. The aliens find some reason to leave, and the humans die. Shook so hard that Jake fell down. The lights went out for a few seconds, then came back on, dimmer than before. Kate's voice crackled over the radio. Captain, we're losing power fast. I can maybe keep us running for 2 more minutes. Jake stood up and looked out the window. Energy wave was getting closer. It looked like a wall of colored light that stretched across space. Behind it, he could see stars being twisted and bent. Captain, Lisa said quietly, I think I know what happened to the people who built those ruins. What? They were abandoned too. The energy readings match something I've never seen before. It's like they turned their own will to survive into actual power. Jake made a decision. He grabbed the ship's controls. Everyone hold on. We're going. Into that wave, Captain. That's crazy, Tony said. It will kill us. Maybe, but running away will definitely kill us. The aliens left us here to die, but I'm not going to make it easy for them. Jake pushed the engines to full power. The Discovery turned toward the energy wave instead of away from it. Lisa grabbed her chair as the ship accelerated. If we're going to die, Jake said. We're going to die learning something. Lisa, keep recording everything. Somehow we survive this? I want to know what those ruins are really for. The energy wave hit the ship like a giant hand as the bridge filled with purple and green light. Jake felt the light go through his body, not burning, but changing something deep inside him. He heard Lisa scream, but it wasn't a scream of pain. It was a scream of surprise. The ship spun and twisted as it flew into the energy storm. Jake held the controls tight, trying to keep them stable. Through the swirling colors, he could see the planet getting bigger. They were falling toward the surface. Kate, can you slow us down? Jake yelled. I'm trying, but the energy is doing something to our engines. They're working better than they should. Better. The energy is feeding power into our systems. We're not dying, Captain. We're getting stronger. The Discovery crashed into the planet's surface, but it didn't break apart. Instead, it slid across the ground and came to a stop near the ancient ruins. Jake looked around the bridge. Everyone was alive. More than alive, they all looked different somehow. Stronger Lisa was staring at her hands. They were glowing. With a faint purple light, Captain, I can feel the ruins. They're not dead. They're waiting. Outside, the energy storm was getting stronger. But Jake wasn't afraid anymore. He was angry. The aliens had left them here to die, but they hadn't died. They had found something the aliens were too scared to face. Tony, check the crew. Lisa, keep studying those energy readings. Kate, see if you can get the ship working again. Where are you going, Captain? Tony asked. Jake walked toward the door that led outside. I'm going to have a talk with whoever built those ruins. I think they have some things to teach us about what happens when you get abandoned by people you trusted. Ow. The door opened, and Jake stepped onto the surface of an alien world, not knowing that he was about to learn the most important lesson in human history. Jake walked across the rocky ground toward the huge stone buildings. The air felt thick and electric, like right before a thunderstorm. Behind him, the Discovery sat in a crater it had made when it crashed. The ship looked broken, but somehow it was still working. The ruins were much bigger up close than they looked from space. The buildings were made of black stone that seemed to drink in light. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with soft purple light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Captain, can you hear me? Lisa's voice came through his radio. I hear you. What did you find? The energy readings are incredible. This whole planet is like one giant machine. The buildings aren't just ruins, they're still active. Jake touched one of the stone walls. It felt warm and seemed to hum with power. Active how? They're collecting something. Not solar energy. Or nuclear power. Something else. Something I've never seen before. Tony's voice joined the conversation. Captain, you need to get back here. We found something in the ship's database. What kind of something? The kind that explains why our alien friends ran away so fast. Jake looked at the tall towers around him. Each one was covered in the glowing symbols, and they seemed to be getting brighter. "I'll be right back." He walked back to the ship, but every step felt harder. Not because he was tired, but because something was pulling him toward the ruins. Like they wanted him to stay. Back on the bridge, Tony and Lisa were looking at a computer screen. Kate was there too, her hands still glowing with that strange purple light. "Show me what you found," Jake said. Lisa pointed to the screen. "I checked the Galactic Council's secret files. The ones they thought we couldn't access. This planet has a name in their records. They call it the Proving Ground." Proving Ground? It's a test, Captain. The aliens have been bringing different species here for thousands of years. They tell them it's a research mission, then they abandon them when the energy wave hits. Jake felt his anger growing. "They've done this before?" Tony nodded. "Dozens of times. Maybe hundreds. They bring a species here, let them get close to the ruins, then run away when things get dangerous. Why? What's the point?" Kate spoke up. Her voice sounded different, stronger. "To see who survives. To see who's strong enough to handle what's down there." "What is down there?" Jake asked. Lisa brought up another screen. "The people who built these ruins, they're still here, Captain. Not alive, but not dead either. The energy readings show. Consciousness patterns? Lots of them." Jake looked out the window at the glowing towers. "You mean ghosts? Not ghosts? Something else? Something that chose to become pure energy instead of dying." Kate held up her hands. The purple glow was getting stronger. "They're trying to talk to us. I can feel them in my head. They're not scary. They're sad." "Sad about what?" "About being left behind, just like us." Jake sat down in his captain's chair. The pieces were starting to fit together. "The aliens didn't just abandon us. They've been abandoning species for thousands of years." "That's not the worst part," Tony said. "According to these files, only one species has ever passed the test. The people who built these ruins, everyone else died. Till now," Lisa said quietly. Jake looked around at his crew. They all looked different, stronger. The purple glow wasn't just in Kate's hands anymore. It was in all of them, just fainter. "The energy wave," Jake said. "It didn't try to kill us. It was testing us." Lisa nodded. "Testing our will to survive. Most species panic when they get abandoned. They give up, accept death. But not us," Kate said. "Humans don't give up, get angry. We fight back." Jake stood up and walked to the window. The ruins were pulsing faster now, and he could see shapes moving between the buildings. Not solid shapes, but outlines made of light. "They're coming," he said. "Who's coming?" Tony asked, reaching for his weapon. "The people who built this place. The ones who passed the test." The shapes moved closer to the ship. They looked like people. But they were made of the same purple energy that flowed through the ruins. Their faces were hard to see, but Jake could feel their emotions. They were curious and hopeful. One of the shapes came right up to the ship's window. It looked at Jake with eyes made of starlight. Then it spoke not with words but directly into his mind. "You did not run," the voice said. It sounded like wind through leaves. "No," Jake said out loud. "We don't run. Your allies abandoned you, as ours abandoned us." "How long ago?" "Time has no meaning here, but we have waited. Waited for others who would not break when tested." Lisa was recording everything on her instruments. "Captain, the energy levels are spiking. Something big is about to happen." Spirit being pressed its hand against the window. "We were like you once, flesh and bone and blood, trusted those who claimed to be our friends. What happened to you? We were brought here by the Vex Star, the same ones who brought you. They told us this was a research mission. They told us we were partners." Jake felt his anger burning hotter. "The Zenthari. They've been doing this for thousands of years." "Yes, but we learned something they did not expect. When you have nothing left but your will to live, that will becomes power," or spirits gathered around the ship. Jake could see hundreds of them now, maybe thousands. All the ghosts of people who had been abandoned and betrayed. "We chose not to die," the spirit continued. "We chose to become something else. Something that could never be abandoned again." Kate stepped up to the window. Her hands were glowing so bright now that they hurt to look at. How do we do it? How do we become like you? You already are. The change has begun. But first, you must understand why you were really brought here. Spirit pointed toward space where the alien ships had disappeared. They do not just abandon species for cruelty. They do it because they fear what those species might become. They fear strength they cannot control. They test us, Jake said. They abandon us to see if we'll break. And if you break, you die. If you do not break, you become something that threatens their power. Tony was checking his weapons again. Captain, I'm reading ships approaching. Big ones. Jake looked at the scanner. The whole fleet was coming toward the planet. Zenthari ships, Corvin warships, and Voidling cruisers. All the aliens who had abandoned them were coming back. They're coming to finish the job, Jake said. The spirit smiled, and even though it was made of energy, Jake could see the expression clearly. No, they are coming to see if you survived, and if you did, they will try to destroy you before you become too powerful. Too powerful for what? Powerful to abandon, too powerful to control, too powerful to stop. Jake felt the purple energy flowing through his body like electricity, but it didn't hurt. It felt like strength, like purpose. What do we do? He asked. What humans do best, the spirit said. You refuse to give up. You refuse to be controlled. You refuse to let them win. The alien fleet was getting closer. Jake could see their ships on the scanner, hundreds of them. More than enough to destroy one crashed human vessel. But Jake wasn't worried anymore. He looked at his crew, all of them glowing with the same purple light. They weren't just human anymore. They were something new. Something that had been forged in the fire of abandonment and betrayal. Lisa, keep recording everything. Right. Our weapons. Kate, see if you can make contact with the ship's systems using that energy. What about you, Captain? Tony asked. Jake smiled. I'm going to have another talk with our spirit friends. I think it's time we learned exactly what happens when you refuse to die. Outside, the alien fleet moved into attack formation. But Jake wasn't afraid. The spirits of the ancient people were still with them, and they had promised to teach the humans everything they knew about turning determination into power. The real test was about to begin. Jake walked back into the ruins with his crew following behind him. The purple light was everywhere now, flowing from the stones like water. The spirit beings floated around them, their energy forms getting brighter as more humans came near. First, lesson, the lead spirit said into their minds. Your anger is not weakness, it is fuel. Lisa held up her scanner, but the screen was blank. My equipment isn't working anymore. You do not need machines, the spirit told her. Touch the wall. Feel what we felt when we were abandoned. Lisa put her hand on the black stone. Her eyes went wide and she gasped. I can see it. I can see their memories. Jake watched as Lisa's whole body began to glow. The purple light spread from her hand up her arm and across her chest. But she wasn't scared. She was smiling. They were scientists too, Lisa said. Like me, they were studying the stars when their allies left them to die. She pressed both hands against the wall. But they didn't die. They got angry. Really, really angry. What happened then? Jake asked. They decided that if their technology couldn't save them, they would become something that didn't need saving. Kate walked over to a different wall. This one had machines built into it, ancient computers that still hummed with power. Can I try? The spirit nodded. Kate put her hands on the machine and immediately sparks flew everywhere. But instead of hurting her, the sparks danced around her fingers like tiny pets. It's incredible, Kate said. I can understand how all of this works not with my brain, but with my hands, with my will. She closed her eyes and concentrated. The ancient machine began to change. Metal flowed like water, reshaping itself into something new. In minutes, Kate had turned a computer that was millions of years old into something that looked like it came from the future. How did you do that? Tony asked. Kate opened her eyes. You were glowing now, bright purple like stars. I just refused to accept that it couldn't be better. I wanted it to work perfectly, so it did. Tony looked at his own hands. They seemed normal, but he could feel energy moving through them. What about fighting? Can this power help us fight? The spirit turned to him. Show him, warrior. Another spirit appeared, this one holding what looked like a weapon made of light. It swung the weapon at Tony fast, too fast for him to dodge. But Tony didn't try to dodge. Instead, something inside him said no. The light weapon hit an invisible wall around his body and shattered into pieces. I didn't do anything, Tony said, surprised. You did everything, the spirit replied. You refused to be hurt. Your will to protect yourself and others became a shield. Tony held up his hands and concentrated. A barrier of purple light appeared in the air in front of him, solid as steel, but made of nothing but his determination to keep his friends safe. Jake watched his crew discover powers that should have been impossible. Lisa could understand any machine just by touching it. Kate could rebuild technology with her bare hands. Tony could create shields and weapons out of pure willpower. What about me? Jake asked the spirit. You are the leader. Your power is different. Different. How? Close your eyes. Think about your crew. Think about keeping them together. Jake closed his eyes and thought about Lisa, Kate, and Tony. He thought about protecting them, about never leaving them behind the way the aliens had left them behind. Suddenly, he could feel their thoughts. It's not reading their minds, but sensing. Their emotions, their fears, their hopes. More than that, he could feel their new powers as if they were his own. I can feel all of you, Jake said, opening his eyes. Leadership is not giving orders, the spirit explained. It is connecting hearts and minds into something stronger than any individual. Lisa was still working with the ancient computers. Captain, I'm getting readings from space. The alien fleet is almost here. It could feel the alien ships through. Lisa's enhanced senses, hundreds of vessels, all armed with weapons designed to destroy planets. They were coming to make sure no humans survived the test. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maybe an hour, Lisa said. But Captain, there's something else. I can feel other things out there. Other ships that don't match any alien design. More. Spirits? Kate asked. The lead spirit shook its head. No. Others who passed the test. Others who were abandoned and chose to become more than they were. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You mean there are others like you? Other species that survived? We have been calling to them for thousands of years. When one species awakens, others feel it across the galaxy. They're coming to help. Through Lisa's connection to the planets, sensors, Jake could see them now. Ships that moved without engines, traveling by willpower alone. Ships made of crystallized thought and determination. How many? Jake asked. All of them, the spirit said. Every species that was ever abandoned, every people who chose to become more than flesh and blood, they have been waiting for this day. Tony was practicing with his new powers, creating walls of light and weapons of pure energy. Captain, I can feel them coming. But I can also feel the aliens getting scared. Scared of what? Scared that they're about to lose control of the galaxy. Kate had finished rebuilding the ancient machine. Now it looked like something from a dream, all flowing curves and glowing crystals. Captain, this machine can do amazing things. It can. Make our ship better. Make us better. Better how? Better at being human. Jake walked over to the machine Kate had built. It hummed with the same energy that flowed through all of them now. What do you need me to do? Just touch it and think about what you want most. Jake put his hand on the warm crystal surface, thought about his crew, about keeping them safe, thought about the aliens who had betrayed them. He thought about all the other species who had been abandoned and left to die. Most of all, he thought about one thing. He never wanted anyone to feel abandoned again. The machine flared with brilliant light. Energy flowed out of it and into the ground, spreading through the entire planet. The ruins began to change, growing taller, becoming more complex. The ancient city was rebuilding itself, but it was also becoming something new. What's happening? Jake asked. You are creating a place where the abandoned can come, the spirit said. A place where those who have been betrayed can learn to become more than they were. Lisa was watching her instruments with amazement. Captain, the entire planet is transforming. It's becoming some kind of training ground. A school. A school. For what? For learning how to turn pain into power. Outside, Jake could hear the sound of ships landing. But these weren't alien ships. These were the vessels of the other awakened species, coming to help defend the new school through the window. Jake could see beings made of living metal walking alongside creatures of pure thought. There were species that looked like walking, storms, and others that seemed to be made of crystallized music. All of them had been abandoned. All of them had been betrayed. And all of them had chosen to become something greater instead of dying. "The alien fleet will be here soon," Tony said, checking his energy weapons. Jake looked at his crew, all of them glowing with power that came from refusing to give up. "Let them come. We're not the same humans they abandoned." Kate smiled, her hands crackling with energy that could rebuild reality itself. "We're not just humans anymore, or what humans become when they refuse to stay down." Lisa nodded, her mind connected to machines and computers across the galaxy. "And we're not alone." Tony raised his hands, and shields of pure determination appeared around the entire city. "Let's show them what happens when you abandon the wrong species." Jake felt the connection to his crew grow stronger. Through their link, he could feel the approaching alien fleet, but he could also feel the awakened species gathering around the planet, ready to defend the school they had all helped create. The aliens thought they were coming to destroy the last humans. Instead, they were about to face every species they had ever abandoned, all united by the same refusal to accept defeat. Jake smiled as he felt the power flowing through him and his crew. The real fight was about to begin, and for the first time in galactic history, the abandoned were ready to fight back. The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace like angry metal wasps. Admiral Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the planet through the viewscreen. His tall blue body was tense with worry. "Report," he ordered in his singing voice. "Moral. We're detecting massive energy readings from the surface," his science officer said. "The ruins are active, more active than they've ever been." War Chief Gorthek's gray stone face showed no emotion, but his red eyes glowed brighter. "The humans should be dead by now. The energy wave should have killed them hours ago." Whisper of stars. The Voidling representative floated in her energy suit near the window. "Something is wrong. I can feel disturbances in the cosmic flow. The abandoned ones are stirring." Admiral Vexstar activated the communication system. "Discovery, this is Admiral Vexstar of the Galactic Council Fleet. Please respond." The radio crackled for a moment. Then Captain Morrison's voice came through, but it sounded different, stronger. "Hello, Admiral. We're still here." "Captain Morrison, prepare for immediate evacuation. Our sensors showed dangerous energy levels on the planet's surface." Jake's voice carried a new tone that made Vexstar's skin crawl. "Evacuation? You mean like the evacuation you gave us when you ran away?" "Captain, you don't understand the situation. This planet is extremely dangerous. We came back to rescue you. Did you now?" Jake said. "That's funny because we've been learning some interesting things about this planet, and about you." Gorthok stepped forward. "Enough talk. If they survived, they are contaminated. We must destroy them before the infection spreads." "Infection?" Jake's voice had ice in it now. "Is that what you call it when someone refuses to die?" Admiral Vexstar felt fear creeping up his spine. This was not how the test was supposed to go. Species either died on the planet or begged to be rescued. It didn't sound calm and confident. "Captain Morrison, we're coming down to get you." "Stay where you are." "Oh, we'll be here. We're not going anywhere." The communication ended. Admiral Vexstar stared at the planet. Something was very wrong. "Admiral," the science officer said, "I'm reading multiple ships approaching the planet. Unknown design? They appear to be made of energy." Vexstar looked at the scanner. Dozens of strange ships were materializing around the planet, ships that looked like they were built from crystallized light and solidified dreams. "What are those?" he whispered. Whisper of Star's voice became high and scared. "The awakened ones. The species who passed the test. They're coming. That's impossible. The awakened species never interfere. They stay in their own space." "Not anymore," Gorthek said, checking his weapons. "Something has changed." Admiral Vexstar made a decision. "All ships, prepare for planetary bombardment. We destroy the surface before this gets out of control. Admiral, the science officer, said we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Put it on screen. The view screen changed to show Captain Morrison standing in front of the ancient ruins, but he looked different. His eyes glowed with purple light, and energy danced around his body like friendly lightning. Behind him stood his crew, all of them, changed in the same way. Dr. Park was connected to machines that had clearly been rebuilt into something impossible. Engineer Sullivan held tools that seemed to be made of pure energy. Commander Blake stood with his arms crossed, and shields of light flickered around him. "Hello, Admiral Vexstar," Jake said calmly. "Hello, War Chief Gorthak. Hello, Whisper Stars. Thank you for the lesson." "Lesson?" Vexstar asked. "The lesson about what happens when you abandon someone who refuses to give up." Jake gestured to the ruins behind him. They had grown larger and more complex, reaching toward the sky like fingers of black stone and purple light. "We've been talking to our new friends here. The spirits of the people you abandoned thousands of years ago. They told us some very interesting stories." "Captain Morrison, you don't understand what you're dealing with." "Oh, but I do." Jake's smile was not friendly. "I understand that you've been running the same scam for thousands of years. Bring a species here, tell them it's a partnership, then abandon them when things get dangerous. It's not a scam. It's a test." "A test for what?" "To see who's strong enough to threaten your control." Jake walked closer to the camera. His eyes burned with purple fire. "Well, congratulations, you found us." Admiral Vexstar felt his heart's beating. "Faster. All ships, begin bombardment. Destroy the surface." "Admiral, wait," the science officer said. "The energy readings are spiking again." On the screen, Jake raised his hand. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Every ship in the fleet fired. At once, hundreds of plasma beams and energy torpedoes raced toward the planet. Enough firepower to crack continents and boil oceans. But the weapons never reached the surface. They hit an invisible barrier around the planet and simply stopped. The energy beams hung in space for a moment, then reflected back at the ships that fired them. Shields up. Vexstar screamed. Most of the ships managed to raise their shields in time. Reflected weapons hit with less force than they were fired with. But 3 Corvin cruisers weren't fast enough, exploded in brilliant flashes of light. "How?" Gorthok whispered. On the screen, Jake lowered his hand. "We decided your weapons couldn't hurt us, so they can't." Tony Blake stepped forward. "Decided your shields can't protect you from us, so they can't." Lisa Park connected to one of her rebuilt machines. "We decided to understand all your technology, so we do." Kate Sullivan held up a device that looked like it was made of crystallized thought. "We decided to make better tools than you have, so we did." Admiral Vexstar stared at the screen. This was impossible. Species didn't just decide to ignore the laws of physics. "You're still thinking like the old galaxy," Jake said, as if he could read Vexstar's thoughts. "The galaxy where technology and politics decide who has power. That galaxy is over." Ships appeared around the planet, the awakened species from across the galaxy, all of them coming to defend the new school that humanity had created. "Now there's a new rule," Jake continued. "Power comes from refusing to accept defeat. Power comes from choosing to become more than you were. Power comes from never abandoning the people who trust you." Jake looked directly at the camera, and Vexstar felt like those burning purple eyes could see right through him. "You made a mistake, Admiral. You abandoned the wrong species." "This is impossible," Vexstar said. "The Galactic Council has maintained order for millions of years. Your order was built on abandoning anyone who might threaten it, but you can't abandon someone who refuses to be abandoned." War Chief Gorthak stepped forward. "Admiral, we should retreat. Call for reinforcements." "There are no reinforcements," Jake said. "Right now, across the galaxy, every species you ever abandoned is learning what we learned. Every people you ever betrayed is discovering what they can become."
Ow.
Jake gestured to the strange ships surrounding the planet. "And they're all coming here to learn how to turn their pain into power." Admiral Vexstar realized what was happening. This wasn't just about one human crew surviving a test. This was about the entire foundation of galactic civilization changing. "You're starting a war," he said. "No," Jake replied. "We're ending one. It's the war you've been fighting against everyone who might be stronger than you." Jake smiled, and the expression was full of a confidence that made Vexstar's blood run cold. "From now on, when someone gets abandoned, they come here. When someone gets betrayed, they learn what we learned. When someone refuses to give up, they become what we became." "What's that?" Vexstar asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Free." The transmission ended. Admiral Vexstar stared at the black screen, knowing that everything had changed. The humans hadn't just survived the test. It turned it into something that would transform the entire galaxy, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Admiral Vexstar stared at the planet for a long moment. His crew waited for orders, but he had no idea what to do. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was crumbling. "Admiral," his science officer said quietly, "more ships are arriving. Thousands of them." The view screen showed space filling with vessels unlike anything in the Galactic Council's databases. Ships that moved like living things, craft made of pure thought, and vessels that seemed to be built from starlight itself. "How many?" Vexstar asked. "I can't count them all. They keep appearing from hyperspace, but they're not using any hyperspace technology we understand." War Chief Gorthok growled deep in his throat. "Admiral, we should attack now while we still outnumber them." "Do we?" Vexstar asked. "Can you count energy beings? Can you destroy ships made of willpower?" On the planet's surface, the city of ruins had grown into something magnificent. Towers of black stone and purple light reached toward the stars. Landing pads appeared wherever they were needed. The ancient spirits worked alongside humans and the newly arrived awakened species, building something that had never existed before, a place where the abandoned could become powerful. "Admiral," the communications officer said, "we're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Rebellions are starting on dozens of worlds." Vexstar felt his stomach drop. "What kind of rebellions?" "Species we abandoned years ago," the reports say. "They're developing impossible abilities. They're overthrowing council governments. They're refusing to accept our authority." Whisper of Stars floated closer to the window. Her energy form was flickering with fear. "It's spreading. The awakening is spreading faster than we ever imagined." On the main screen, Captain Morrison appeared again, but this time he wasn't alone. Beings from dozens of species stood with him, all of them glowing with the same purple energy. All of them looking calm and confident. Admiral Jake said, "I have a message for the Galactic Council." "What message?" Vexstar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Your system is over. For millions of years, you've stayed in power by making sure no one could challenge you. You abandoned anyone who got too strong. You destroyed anyone who asked. Too many questions." Jake gestured to the beings around him. "But you made a mistake. You thought power came from technology and fear. You thought control came from keeping others weak." Being made of living crystal stepped forward. "We are the Shard Singers. You abandoned us 3,000 years ago. We learned to turn our songs into reality." A creature that looked like walking starlight spoke next. "We are the Light Weavers. You left us to die when our sun went out. We learned to become our own light." More species stepped forward, each one telling their story of abandonment and transformation. Vexstar realized he was looking at thousands of years of the Council's crimes coming back to face them. "You created us," Jake said. "Every time you abandoned someone, you created an enemy. Every time you left someone to die, you created someone who would never forget." "What do you want?" Vexstar asked. "We want you to choose." "Choose what?" Jake smiled, and it wasn't a cruel smile. It was sad, like someone who had learned a terrible truth. "You can keep trying to control the galaxy through fear and abandonment. You can keep running tests and leaving people to die. You can keep pretending that strength comes from keeping others weak." Jake paused, letting his words sink in. "Or you can learn what we learned. You can discover what you become when you stop being afraid of others' strength." War Chief Gorthek stepped forward on his own ship. "You're asking us to give up our power." "No," Jake said. "We're asking you to find real power. It's the kind that comes from lifting others up instead of keeping them down." Admiral Vexstar looked around his bridge. His crew was scared. For the first time in their lives, they were facing beings more powerful than the Galactic Council. And if we refuse, Jake's expression grew serious. Then you'll discover what happens when everyone you ever wronged decides to stop accepting it. As if to prove his point, alarms began ringing on every ship in the Council fleet. The communications officer looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the capital. The homeworlds are under attack, but not by weapons or ships. Then by what? By the people themselves. Citizens are rising up with abilities we've never seen. They're demanding an end to the abandonment protocols." Vexstar felt the last of his certainty crumble. "How is this possible?" Because Jake said gently, "Once people learn they don't have to accept being abandoned, the knowledge spreads. Once they discovered they can become more than they were, nothing can stop them." On the screen behind Jake, Vexstar could see the transformed planet. It had become a beacon, sending out waves of energy that reached across the galaxy. Not harmful energy, but something else. Hope, maybe, or determination. "The awakening is spreading to every world," Jake continued. "To every species that was ever told they weren't good enough. To everyone who was ever left behind." Lisa Park stepped up beside Jake. "We've rebuilt the communication networks. Every person in the galaxy can now hear each other. They can share their stories. They can learn from each other." Kate Sullivan held up a device that pulsed with gentle light. "We've created new technology that responds to will and determination instead of wealth and politics. Anyone can use it. Everyone can become stronger." Tony Blake crossed his arms, his protective energy visible around his body. "And we've made it impossible for you to abandon anyone ever again. Every time you try, we'll be there to help them become more powerful." Admiral Vexstar realized what they were really offering. Not destruction, but transformation. Not revenge, but evolution. "You're giving us a chance to change," he said slowly. "We're giving you the same chance you accidentally gave us," Jake replied. "The chance to become more than you were." Vexstar looked at his crew, then at the thousands of awakened ships surrounding his fleet. He could order an attack, but he knew it would be useless. These beings had moved beyond the kind of power that came from weapons and fear. "What would we have to do?" he asked quietly. "Start by stopping the tests. Stop abandoning people. Stop trying to control who gets to be strong." Jake gestured to the growing city below. "Then come down here and learn. Learn what real strength looks like. Learn what happens when you help others instead of hurting them. And if some of the council refuses," Jake's expression grew sad again, "then they'll discover that in the new galaxy, the ones who abandon others get abandoned themselves." "Admiral?" Vexstar made a decision that would change his life forever. "All ships stand down. We're going to the surface." War Chief Gorthak turned to him in shock. "Admiral, you can't be serious." "I am. We're going to learn what we should have learned millions of years ago." Vexstar opened a channel to his entire fleet. "This is Admiral Vexstar. You're surrendering to the awakened species, not because we have to, but because we choose to. Anyone who wants to learn a new way of living, follow me to the surface." One by one, ships from the Council fleet began landing on the planet. Not all of them. Some turned and fled toward distant space. But many stayed, their crews ready to discover what they could become when they stopped being afraid of others. Strength Jake watched from the surface as the first Council ships touched down. The awakened beings gathered around them, not as conquerors, but as teachers. "Captain," Lisa said, "we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. The awakening is spreading faster than we ever imagined. Entire star systems are transforming." Nodded, feeling the weight of what they had started. "And this is just the beginning." Kate smiled as she watched former enemies walking together toward the city of learning. "What happens now? Now we teach them what we learned," Jake said. "That real strength doesn't come from abandoning others. It comes from refusing to be abandoned. And from making sure no one else ever has to feel that way again." Above them, the stars seemed brighter than before. The galaxy was changing, one awakened being at a time. The age of abandonment was over. The age of rising together had begun.